This is Dave LaGreca from Busted Open. I can't wait to listen to the newest, hottest podcast in pro wrestling, Somewhere in the Ring.
The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to Somewhere in the Ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
Press buttons, dagnabbit.
I believe in your power to press buttons, Andrew, for sure.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off real nice with a request, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I need a new window sign. So I have literally never hung a political sign for anybody ever.
Yeah.
Not once. You were my first. And I did not think about the fact that if I put it behind the screen and it rained, the sign would be ruined, which it was. So it's all curly there now. It's holding on, but it's,
yeah. I'll get you another one if it helps. I can get some tape for the corners or something if you want, like tape onto the glass. Like, yeah.
That would be perfect. That would be perfect.
Thank
Dude,
you.
My pleasure. Because I will look. So this is Somewhere in the Ring. I am Andrew Sanford. This is a podcast where we talk about wrestling, and we will be talking about a little some wrestling today. But today I am sitting down with Jersey City Council candidate Jake Ephros for Ward D. Hi, Jake.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, everyone in the audience. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to chat.
Thank you. Because I was trying to go through things mentally in my head, and I'm going to move on now from a request to a compliment and a kind of why I put that sign up so readily. Is my wife and I first met you at Riverview Park, right around the corner, I think about a year ago, somewhere around there. It had to have been nice because we met. You seemed lovely, and we were very excited, and we want to see change in our political system. And like a week, maybe 2 weeks later, we were walking through that very same park, and I didn't bother you, but I saw you gardening there outside at the park, doing your bet, like putting your money where your mouth is and trying to make things beautiful around here any chance that you could get. And I was like, that's my guy. Like immediately, seriously, like to see that kind of work put in for something that is not innocuous. It all matters, but it was inspiring. It was exciting. And I've just been glad to see you keep moving and grooving and pushing since then.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. No, I mean, it's easy sometimes to talk about like the big ideals of the campaign and like the change, as you said, that we need in our political system to put working class people in power. And then it can be easy to just show up to an event, show up to do a little gardening, volunteering, or clean up some trash. It's more work to put those together and to be like, hey, we need to be both inside the nitty gritty, little changes that are as like basic and also fundamental and precious as like gardening, cleaning up our gardens in the neighborhood, but then also to tie it to, this is actually part of a movement for working people to take over with the luxury skyrise developers. But yeah, that's whenever you're ready.
Yeah, of course. And I think too, it's so there's, are you a 30 Rock fan at all?
I used to watch a little bit, I think when I was in high school, but I didn't like sit down and watch the whole thing from the end or anything.
That's fair. There is Al Gore is on there at one point, and what's kind of funny is he says something, and he's very funny. He's on there a couple times, but he says something that I think is supposed to make him look like a little bit silly, but something that I've always kind of taken to heart, which is he was like, they say if you want to go fast, you go alone, and if you want to go far, you go together, and we need to go far fast. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying, which is that like you can show up to group meetings, you can do all those things, you can talk to people as much as you want, but if you're not putting the work in your own time, not as much isn't going to get done.
Right. Yeah, no, totally.
Before I pepper you with John Cena questions for just a little bit, and then we will get into more campaign stuff. And I will say I did have a slightly secret meaning as to why I picked that first match.
Yeah,
you loved it.
I love that we're gonna tie it all together, and I'm excited to watch you cook. So yeah.
Thank you. Before we get to that, why Jersey City? Because my wife and I was a New York City resident until like January 2024. So pretty fresh. And I was there for about 16 years. And I have quickly like fallen in love with Jersey City, but there's also like elements. Part of that is I have seen active change take place since I've been here, which is super inspiring. But for you, why Jersey City?
I was born and raised in Jersey, not Jersey City, but in Montclair, New Jersey. So like North Jersey feels like home, and I'm really grateful to now call Jersey City my home, and that's my home. For me, there's always been something attractive about this smaller mid-sized city where it's hustle and bustle. There's always stuff going on. It's incredibly diverse and vibrant, and there's a small town vibe where you stick around long enough, you know everyone. You're outgoing enough. You know your neighbors know you. You walk up and down Central Ave in the middle of our neighborhood, the Heights, and you can just like run into so many people you know and start chit-chatting. So for me it's this sweet spot that just like warms my heart so much, of a community that really, really cares about being a community, with a dynamism and hustle and bustle and the energy of a true city.
Yes.
And so that's just one reason I really love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Especially like I have twin 4-year-olds. They will both be going to Thank you. They take after their mother. We got very lucky. But they will be going to school 2 blocks up. They take which starts on Thursday. So if anybody hears any loud sobbing, that's just me. I'm fine. I'm just getting adjusted. But they take ballet right next to Riverview Park. Like and this was probably like the 3rd time they've like really trick-or-treated was last year. And I know they're excited for that, but I was amazed at how like communal it felt when we were going around, because it still has that kind of like, I lived in Washington Heights for a lot of my time in New York City, and aside from like there's not as many like big buildings around here, obviously, even though some people are trying to force that in, it seems like quite a bit, but it's true there. It was just felt nice and like with that big city feel, with that diversity, but also like you're saying, like you can just kind of get to know everybody. You can feel a little bit safer around here as long as no one's driving. Aside from that, everybody's really nice.
That's one of the hurdles to overcome here.
I don't know. At this point, I'm just like, apparently we need like dividers instead of stop signs. People just ignore stop signs like it's their job. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. We need to like really invest in infrastructure that slows down traffic and calms traffic. It's really bad. And invest in mass transit too. Like if we just had more buses, then more people could get rid of their cars and just use buses, light rail, the path. For those who don't know what the path is, it's a very magical link between Jersey City and New York that New Yorkers are always blown away by when they come over to the New Jersey side. What the? There's a train that runs. This is incredible. Like really loud and screeching, but it like worked. Like yeah.
And I have to go into Times Square for work all the time. When the buses are working, I'm there in like 20 minutes, and then I'm back in like 13. That's like no time at all. right in
Yeah.
Port Authority. So yeah, it's exactly. I like the World Cup is going to be here next year, and I'm like, yo, I was, I went to SummerSlam at MetLife. And even what was one of the most wild experiences I had is getting there. I took the 85. We're going to get into the real nitty gritty Jersey City stuff here, guys. I took the 85 up to Meadowland, like a straight shot, which took almost an hour. Right.
Yeah.
But then on the way back, it was faster to take they had a bus that went directly to Times Square. And then I took my regular bus from Times Square back here. And I did that in less time than like the straight shot would have taken. It's insane.
Is the 85 the one that says American Dream on the stop marquee?
Yes,
I love
it
this because we have the American Dream Mall, some 20 minutes away from here, depending on traffic, whatever. And there's a bus that 85, right? That says American Dream on it, and I'm gonna walk on the bus, and where I get let off is the American Dream.
Yeah. And it is too. That place is pretty amazing, and I'm glad they held on to it despite it getting started right before people were not going outside for a long time.
Oh yeah, that mall has a really storied history. So
yes. But before we get into that, I had you watch a wrestling match for this podcast, as I often force people to do. One thing I will tell you, which is kind of fun, I won't say who, but if people go back on the podcast, they might be able to figure it out. A very prominent WWE wrestler lives in our neighborhood. I will text you a picture afterward.
Okay.
So you will know to spot him. I won't say his name, but it was one of those things. I believe he has purchased a house around here, like full on move.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I've heard this before. Anyway, okay, we'll talk offline so we don't.
Yeah. I don't want to blow up his spot, but it was the first time I ran into him. My dad wanted to take a picture of his Cybertruck, which I think he no longer owns, which is a very good sign. He got rid of that thing real quick. But my dad wanted to take a picture of the Cybertruck. That's a whole other story. And did not. It, literally asked this famous gentleman. He was basically like, "Can you move so I can get a picture of your car, please?" Like the guy was it was maybe a humbling moment. But do you have any relationship with professional wrestling whatsoever? There are no wrong answers here.
So before you sent me that video and I watched it, I was trying to think. I don't know if I've ever watched an entire pro wrestling match ever before in my life. And cool. I did some digging because I think WWE has always, escaped me in some way as being like, wait, do people think this is real? And so I had to really actually this is like a really like old sport that has been about entertainment for some time. So it was like a lot. I learned a lot from this. So this was
cool.
Really interesting. I never followed. I tried wrestling in middle school, and I hated it. I was like,
way different. I
had some traumatic experience. There was another boy that I was wrestling with, and he really smelled, and I was like, I don't like this at all. So yeah.
And we are both bespectacled folks. Were you a glasses wearer at the time, or did you have to do contacts?
No, I think that was before I was 12 probably, and I got contacts when I was 12. So I'm sure it was either my glasses were uncomfortable or they were off and I couldn't see. And if it was one of those two, then I'm sure I was. That's a good thing to point out, especially me.
Yeah, because I wrestled for 1 year in the 10th grade. I had a varsity letter, even though I lost every single match I was in. I kept beating the kid in our team for the varsity spot, which really made my coaches angry because then I just couldn't. But I had contacts, and I remember the first match, I just like got one like knocked out of my eyeball. Like it was awful. Yeah, dude. And I'm like a chubbier 189 pounds wrestling against some dudes who are like 189 but just all muscle.
Yeah.
And like good for them, but I was not in the right spot. So that's incredible. And to tie it together, something that I was really astounding about this match for me is that a lot of what we know of John Cena talent-wise is already there, right? And then he would end up exploding into this superstar, like megastar, who holds a record for Make-A-Wish Foundation completions. Yeah, he's got like over 600 he has completed, and it's every time you see, like, they are heartwarming every single time. He treats every single kid as he should. It's incredible. And he's retiring this year, which is something that the majority of pro wrestlers don't get to decide. It can be a tragic business, and a lot of them, their time is up just because they're forced to sometimes.
Yeah.
But in picking this,
or out of the decisions of the company, like any of
everything. And what's wild is, so, like, a lot of times it'll be injuries, but then there will be injuries that they try to mask and they try to wrestle through because they don't really know how to do anything else. Like, it's one of the most infamous cases in that would be if you ever heard the name Chris Benoit. He was somebody who murdered his family, which was very tragic in the early 2000s. And it was when they did an autopsy, they found that his brain, from having so many concussions and never doing anything about them, was like hanging on by a thread. It's horrible. And it's something that, and I will get into this a little bit more once we start getting into your campaign. Wrestlers need a union, have always needed a union, and it would probably stop a lot of that kind of stuff from happening. And a certain gentleman who just passed made sure that unions were not a thing in the WWE in the mid 80s. So yeah, no fun. We were not Hulk Hogan fans on this podcast. So death is terrible, but you know, some people leave the world worse off than when they were here. Anyway, that's a concern.
Hey man, I'm with you.
It's just it's infuriating. It's infuriating to see people put themselves above the collective. I'll just never, I'll never understand it. Yeah. But so this was John Cena and Kurt Angle. Were you familiar with either of these two outside of, like, John Cena? I assume yes.
Yeah, John Cena definitely. I didn't know about Kurt Angle. I mean, John Cena was even on my mind recently because Jersey City has been seeing him despite maybe his best efforts. He's been downtown.
A+, bud. A+.
I studied up. He's shooting a movie in Jersey City, and so I was seeing him like on Reddit and things, like pictures, WhatsApp sharing. So it was already on my mind. I'm like, okay, this is sweet. Like, I get to see the like first fight. Really interested to know anything about Kurt Angle. I thought him taking off his like little wig with the ear protection, that was hilarious way to start it.
And he is an actual Olympic gold medalist. So he won, and if I remember correctly, so basically he won a gold medal for wrestling, the thing that we were not as successful at. And then I believe he won it with a broken neck, and then eventually parlayed that into professional wrestling and became one of the greatest to ever do it. And someone who was unfortunately undone by injuries and an addiction to painkillers and all these things that just like are stories that are all too common. Like what's wild is there's a wrestler named Diamond Dallas Page who like within the last 10 years just said like, hey guys, you know, instead of pills, we could do yoga. And everybody was like, you're crazy. And he's just like, no. And he started this whole yoga campaign and it has saved lives. Saved lives. Like
That's incredible. That's
like there's been so much of, and what we were talking about earlier too, about the whether or not people believe this is real. A lot of that has changed in the time too. There's something called kayfabe, which was an old carnival barker term, which was basically like whatever happened in the ring, you pretended it was real. And there were guys with like, oh, their arm got broken. They would walk around town with a cast on. And that used to be even more important when it was like territorial, right? Like they were broken up into these small territories. And again, within the last decade or so, a lot of those walls have come down. So not only are these guys guys and gals, because also women's wrestling has taken huge leaps forward in that time, pardon me, they get to make income outside of it. They get to be themselves. They get to talk about what the business is like. And I think that brings more respect to it because they're athletes, they're entertainers, they're all these things. So as far as seeing that, because this ended up being a pretty straightforward match. Did anything stick out to you at all? Like anything that you maybe didn't expect?
I think again, coming into this very fresh, not having ever watched a pro wrestling match before. I think just how performative it was like, wait, this is literally spectacular. Like it's really intentionally spectacular. Flying off of the ropes at one another. Those moves were just, I mean, they're fun. They're like funny and exciting, and having to like practice that suspension of disbelief and was great. So yeah, I think the idea that here's this villain, Kurt Angle, right? And here's this young buck challenger coming to get him. That's a story that's legible and intelligible in so many different parts of our world and parts of society, politics, fiction, etc. So it was fun. I kept not being able to place it. Like, wait, like what's like this is athletic and this is performance, and I guess that's just me learning what pro wrestling is. It's both. It's I would always because I went to a theater conservatory. That's why I'd moved out here to begin with, and I would often explain to people, I'm just like, look, it's the stage combat class we're taking. It's the same thing, like just a little bit more heightened. I also love, very recently I've seen this go around a lot, which is people saying that wrestling is drag for straight people, which I think is very funny. Brilliant. Yeah.
And we didn't even get into some of these costumes, especially when they do like WrestleMania or the big SummerSlam that they had. Huge, elaborate entrances, lights, fireworks, all kinds of crazy stuff. Right. It rules.
Are there any openly or out queer pro wrestlers that are really taking off now?
There are. That has definitely climbed more in recent years. There's one gentleman, particularly in AEW, which is another company that does have the benefit of, we talk about this. Look, both companies are owned and run by billionaires, right? But the WWE has always been in the conservative pocket, like across the, like for its entire existence. And AEW has very purposely allowed its wrestlers to be more openly political in their choices. I have, for instance, one guy named Brody King. They were doing an event in Mexico about a month ago, and he wore a shirt that said "Abolish ICE," and and then started selling them with all benefits going to victims of that terrible organization. And I bought one, which is a blast. I've been wearing that around the neighborhood. And there's I believe his name is Max Caster, who is a openly gay wrestler in that company, who talks about that frequently. And a lot of them will voice their displeasure with a lot of right-wing politics constantly. That being said, whenever anybody is just like, see, how can I not like Tony Khan, whose dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars? And I'm just like, guys, it is great that he's allowing his wrestlers to do that. That does not make him any more trustworthy than any other billionaire.
Well put. Exactly.
Like, you just can't. There are certain people you just cannot put up on a pedestal, or you are going to get disappointed. Like every time.
Workers are expected based on having a boss, right? Having a billionaire boss. There's tons of exploitation going on, and if they're given some more rights or some fewer rights, the relationship is still the same, right? The relationship is still fundamentally the same one of exploitation. So yeah.
Exactly. Like, and you can always see too, it's the pizza party effect. Like, there's always this like, oh, that's why I think within the last like 10 years, I forget what my breaking point was, but anytime I've worked for a company that I am displeased with and they're like, hey, we're having a holiday party, I'm like, great, I won't be there. Like, that's give me some time off, raise my pay.
Yeah. Totally.
I don't need an open bar. Like, come on, guys. Like,
no, exactly. Can I have insurance? Like, pay for I'd rather go to the dentist than have one night of whatever eggnog. We spiked eggnog on the company.
Yeah, exactly. Cold meats, which always seems to be the case at those things. Like, it's just like, come on, we couldn't. So hey, look, let's just use that as a nice transition. I'm so glad you watched the match. I'm so glad you got stuff out of it. And I get the thing that made me want to watch that one to talk about you is just like I saw the potential that paid off in John Cena in this match. I see a wealth of potential in you and what you're doing. So ideally in 10 years, we're having a completely different conversation or like different in the way that you're moving up in what you're trying to do. So I guess my question there too is there, I know what you're doing around here. Is there a bigger plan for you future wise than beyond a city council? And that's not to say that there is anything to scoff at city council work, because that important changes start locally. You start small. That's where the ground gets built. So do you see a wider spectrum, or are you just more like tunnel vision? Let's make sure Jersey City is the best it can be.
Yeah, I think that the latter right now, like, who knows what the future holds for any of us. And I'm just laser focused on, we win our election in November, likely run off in December. And then immediately we flip to, now how do we campaign on winning the whole set of the agenda and the policy platform? And how do we both win transformative change that puts working people in power, and how do we also build a movement beyond just legislation for city council? But how do we organize more and more robust movement of tenants, of workers, community groups, to really keep pushing and fighting for these things beyond what any one elected official could do or one candidate could do on their own? So I have no intention of like, this will be a pad for then, next, I'm like, let's see what we can do in city council. Like, let's see what kind of movement building we can do and legislation we can pass on city council.
Sure. I love that. And we see this with a similar person who is also very exciting, with a Zoran Mumdani, like right next door, which is a similar thing, which is I expected no less, but I think when sometimes that question gets thrown as kind of like, oh, what's your real big plan? Like, what are you really getting at? And it's always this idea of like change. small change.
Yeah.
We handle what we can handle right now. If one more person asks when he's going to Israel, I'm going to lose my mind. It is going to drive me insane.
It's wild. It's wild. No,
really
and he's
wild.
like, and props to him for being so solid about those answers. Just like, I'm gonna stay. Like,
Yes.
I'm the mayor of New York. Like, I'm gonna be here in New York City.
Exactly.
Like, are you trying to make me the mayor of the state of Israel? No, I'm
Right.
I'm interested in being mayor of New York. Yeah, and I mean, again, that's a whole other story. I have family in Israel, and I'm like, I have no plans on going there anytime soon. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly not until.
Yeah.
That's
So
another few podcasts, but
right. We will bring Ryan back for that one. I will make sure that he's available for that, because he is also, again, you came on the right show is my main point. But
yeah.
So you're a teacher, right? And what grade, if you don't mind me asking, what grades do you teach?
I'm in higher ed, so I'm an adjunct at St. Peter's University.
Awesome.
Here in the city, and I've also taught at Hudson County Community College the past year, but I'm taking a break from HCCC classes this semester because it would just be too much for too many classes plus the campaign. Like, I'm in the maximum number of classes I can to still make a little bit of money, but also have time to win the election and build the campaign. So yeah.
Right, exactly.
St. Peter's.
You teach politics? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What made you want to get into what made you want to get into teaching, first and foremost?
I have such a huge number of teachers in my family. Like, my mom's taught for most of my life. My sister's an artist and also teaches. My girlfriend's a pre-K teacher, and my dad does lectures sometimes. He's a doctor, does some lectures once in a while, and has that education. Like, his mom, my softer, was a teacher, so like there's education always baked into my family in different ways. And it wasn't really a concrete plan of mine. I'd thought about it, maybe one day I'll go into teaching, but I was a union organizer for healthcare workers. I was with 1199 SEIU, where I helped organize nursing home workers and nurses. And
dude, that rules.
It was, I mean, learned a ton from them. They are some of the hardest working people on this planet.
I was about to say, is that how you met? We have a mutual friend in Leah Thompson.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
Shout out to
Hi, Leah.
Yeah. That is how we met. We were on the same organizing team together. And long story short, when I announced 1 billion years ago, which is actually just like a year and change ago, that I was going to be a candidate for city council, my union said, you can't be on staff as a union organizer and a public candidate for office at the same time. So I had to step back, and I looked for jobs because I was like, well, I have another year until the election. So I wound up, just through some friends in Jersey City, landing these teaching gigs at Hudson County and St. Peter's. I really looked out, and I really enjoy it. I mean, I really love teaching, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And in teaching politics specifically, is it just kind of like and not to like simplify it too much, but it's just like is it like a politics and you thing? Like, it's like, hey guys, this is why politics are important in your life.
I try and make it as tangible for people as possible. So one of my classes is an introductory perspectives on politics class. It's like a 100 level. Many of the students there are freshmen, many of whom have no interest in doing political science as their degree or focus or anything, or nursing students, they're doing computer science, whatever else. But they need this as a gen ed credit. And so I try and make it really tangible. And we do some of the kind of canonical Western philosophy, but also break out into stuff like Angela Davis and
Mm-hmm.
Amanda Taylor, like more, diverse and newer writers to talk about politics. The other class I'm teaching for the first time this semester, urban politics and policy. So really, it's like a 200 level focus on the city and like what are the politics of the city and what are the challenges and opportunities that cities face politically.
Amazing. And so I assume there's a lot of public transportation talk there as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about transit. We'll talk about housing, and we'll talk about some models elsewhere in the world, but also focus a lot on Jersey City and New York City. Yeah.
Amazing. So, as I had mentioned before, Ryan Sprague, loud and proud Democratic Socialist. You are a member of the Democratic Socialist Party. I am somebody I am a liberal, progressive, all those kind of things, but have become disillusioned with assigning to a certain party. And a lot of that has to do with the Democratic Party's failures. And a lot of that has to do with Democrats shunning members of the DSA consistently, like to a point that feels absurd, and impossible to not call what it is, right? So what have you seen as being, if any, the biggest challenges of being an open member of the DSA?
Great. So I'll first answer something that I heard in your question of the hesitation to identify with a label, which is understandable. I think a lot of people are hesitant to identify with any label, be it a party one or with Democratic Socialists of America. I think it is helpful to have labels politically because it helps bring together a collective from a bunch of individuals. And if we, for instance, when we talk about unions with, whether it's WW, whether it's healthcare workers, whether it's anyone, if a bunch of individuals were like, yeah, I believe that we should all have higher wages, that we should, have better healthcare, that we should have better PTO, so on and so forth, but they don't have a common identity as a union, then it's going to be really hard for them to win on that stuff. They're going to be treated like individuals. But if we do identify with a collective, then we're going to be able to work as a collective. And so just having some kind of shared identity really does make a difference. And so the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, is a Big Ten organization, a lot of different tendencies on the political spectrum within it. And I think it's helpful that we all do, those of us who are members, like all do participate in it, are active in it, identify openly as members of it, because it helps us move collectively rather than just as individuals. So that's my pitch for labels are, yes, they may constrain in some ways because that's what they do, but they also open things up. They open up possibilities of being able to move it together.
I love that.
A challenge of doing so is that people are going to call me all kinds of stuff, and already have called me all kinds of stuff, radical, and extreme, and yada yada yada, communist, yada yada yada.
The communist one always cracks me up because I'm just like, guys, they're literally two different words. Like they're
different words. And look, I mean, I say radical, communist, and extreme with no connotation any of those. So you can feel any way, but the idea of, okay, I'm a Democratic Socialist, and that then has a whole set of connotations for other people. What I find, though, is that it's a loud minority that is really upset by the label. There's also a great chunk, and I think a growing chunk of people who are just off the bat excited by it, and they see it on my literature, they see it on a sign, they hear it when I or one of the volunteers from the campaign goes to the door and says, hey, Jake's Socialist candidate, and they're excited by it immediately. I think that group is growing. And then I think there's a ton of people who aren't as familiar, and like maybe it causes some questions in their mind. Maybe they're open to hearing about it. So some people will say, like, Jake, wouldn't it be easier if you did that, put it off to the side, like, you know, your label, the Democratic Socialist, in less of a prominent position in this campaign? And my thought is, like, people are going to find out one way or another. People are going to get stuff in the mail that has a black and white grainy photo of me, maybe like red, like aura all around, and like Jake Ephros is a radical, you know. So they're going to find out one way or another. It might as well be from us first, from my mouth or the mouth of volunteers or our literature first, to say that, again, being a Democratic Socialist just means putting working class people in power. That's what I see, and it's the movement to put working class people in power, instead of having, you know, giant corporate billionaires run things and buy and sell politicians. Like, it's the movement to put working people in power. So that's my belief. I'd rather tell people first and have people, you know, judge the campaign based on that. So yeah, that's my long answer to the simple question.
No, it was, because it's the thing is, I think it's like deceptively simple. You know what I mean? Like, there is a lot going on there. I think there is nuance. There are things to be discussed. Like, and I think there's also something to, if more people are open about who they are, it will make people who are that, but maybe are not as comfortable being open about it, feel comfortable being open about it. Like that, I'm a big proponent of like the he, him, and her, his, hers, and stuff like that, pronouns, because even as somebody who I like is one way and will probably be perceived the way they want more easily, it will make people feel, if I am also doing it, it will make people who won't have as easy of a time feel more comfortable doing it as well. Like it creates more of an opportunity for discussion and acceptance of something, and normalizing something that is, again, like you're saying, there shouldn't be a negative connotation to radical, but there's also, that's because nothing about what you're saying should be perceived as radical.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, God forbid workers have protections. Like, it's just insanity.
Yeah.
I would much rather my tax dollars go to helping people than helping a billionaire pay for like a stadium that they could easily pay for themselves. Like any of that stuff. Like,
totally.
So what, you're about a little over a year into your campaign now. Yes. What has been one of the more exciting surprises about it for you? Something that you maybe didn't expect when you wanted to start campaigning?
That I would watch John Cena match and go on a neighbor's wrestling. One of the really fun, no, genuinely, I love it. This is so awesome. I think, oh man, I think finding ourselves in this position of being the independent candidate in the field is, I mean, just something I didn't think about as much at the beginning. We were always talking about like independent politics, and that meant different things. But right now there's like 5 candidates in the field. Each of the other candidates in this district is attached to someone running for mayor, is on the slate running for mayor, sharing monetary resources and donation campaigns too. We're not doing that, and you know, we don't have any corporate donors, we don't have any real estate donors, we don't have any pay to play contract contributors, whatever. We're doing this very grassroots, and so I think what's been cool is how that kind of independent status has turned from, this is a super uphill battle, it's going to be really hard for you, you're doing this on your own, to actually this is a really genuinely exciting part of the campaign, and people are eating it up that like, we want an independent voice. Oh my God, we want someone who's, you know, not just doing it for the sake of some other politician or for the sake of some big donor, but doing it for this community, doing it to put working people in power. So the independent thing, I think that's been exciting to see people really gravitate to it, and it resonate with so many people.
Sure. And I like that too, because it is something that feels more genuine coming from someone like you, as opposed to it being what should have been a very identifiable false promise from the huckster that we currently have in charge of this country. Like it flabbergasts me to no end that he was just like, I'm an outsider and I'm working for you, and people were like, yeah, okay, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
most outsiders I know have gold toilets, so that's like,
Yeah. No, exactly. From the lonely margins of being a racist landlord billionaire, like he's really picked himself up out of these guys.
And WWE Hall of Famer too, no less.
Yeah.
That, like, just
There we go. We're
every
circling back.
time I see Linda McMahon, I'm just like, oh god, like she's the worst. She's the worst. It's insane, dude. Like it's one of those things too where I'm just like, there are plenty of individuals who work for the WWE, and that's always where it gets kind of tough, is because I understand people wanting to just throw the whole thing out whole cloth.
Yeah.
And then there's this idea too, again, when it comes to the other company, where I'm just like, guys, if you dig deep enough, you are going to find things like that everywhere. And there's a mix of like, you want to participate in society, but you also want to, and this word has been driven into the ground by all the wrong people for all the wrong reasons, but you want to be woke to certain things. Like you want to be, it's like you can participate in society, but still just mind your P's and Q's and pay attention to what you're really contributing to, and make choices when you can. I haven't stepped foot in a Target in like 13 months now at this point. Like there are decisions to be made.
Can I ask him, as someone who's followed WWE for a long time, like, did you see that coming, that Linda McMahon would move into anything political? And I mean, or whatever is left of it, like what the hell happened?
I think only yes, because she had a couple failed Senate runs. Like most of the people in his aura, it's all people who were not good enough to do things on their own and have had to like stick by his side to get anything done. Like I'm talking, she ran to be the senator of Connecticut, I think at least twice, and got handily beaten both times. And there's also the weird, like, she's always been like a little bit quieter and like behind the scenes. She's definitely been a part of the product at certain times in ways that are horrendous. But yeah, I think it was one of those things where I wouldn't have seen it coming, but when it happened, it wasn't surprising, if that makes sense. Like that being said, because I believe the first time it was like, oh, she was put in charge of like the small business something or other. And to be fair, that's an easier walk, because that is kind of how the WWE started. It was a smaller business that consumed a lot of other businesses and did a lot of dirty tactics and stuff. To put her as the Secretary of Education is laughable, and I think we're getting the exact result that should be expected from that. Like, I don't know how she could like look at her grandchildren and who, you know, are going to private schools and all those things, I'm sure. Yeah. And just be like, I'm going to rip the rug out from like everybody else. It's just wild. It's really crazy. I think and this is on both sides of the aisle. I'm done thinking even slightly that people 60 years old or older want this place to be running properly when they're gone. Like, and I don't know when that switch happened so thoroughly, but it's like not even slight anymore. Like any of the people, like you just can't trust people over a certain age. It's insane. So yeah, I think she's doing what I would expect her to do in this situation, to put it mildly.
Yeah. Nice.
And how does that feel like? Is because I've seen you putting in the good work, letting people know when ICE is menacing our neighborhood and things of that nature. How does it feel to be kind of galvanized by that? You know what I mean? Like, because I know obviously you are going to do it. You are putting in the good work, but is there an element of it that feels rewarding, or is it just kind of like you have to do it and it sucks?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, like the putting myself out there to run for office, it's inseparable from ego and my sense of self. And I like to be honest, I would be lying if I was saying that going out there talking about the issues and having like my face and name attached to what is hopefully a much bigger movement to win a better world for everyone. It feels good to get any kind of recognition or be complimented on all that. I mean, it doesn't feel good to be like, Jake, there is an ICE raid in the neighborhood. Can you go see what's up and like help tell us what to do? But whatever, that just sucks. That just sucks.
Right.
And like, I'll make a video and share like, hey, this is what happened in our neighborhood. Like, we gotta stay vigilant. Here's some organizations to connect with. But yeah, that's not like a fun part of it, of course. So I think that answers your question. Does that?
Yeah. 100%. And again, it wasn't an easy question either. So thank you for, it requires.
For sure.
As far as the bigger movement, you were at a conference a couple weeks ago. I know you got to talk to Hassan Piker, which is very cool. I wish my chest was that big. I tried before you got here, I promise. But but like I am somebody who's always been like a little weird, a little quirky. I am very much a middle child, and I remember I didn't really feel like I belonged someplace until I went to a Weird Al concert in 2016, the first Weird Al concert I'd ever been to in my life. And I started to see people, it just felt different. Was there a similar kind of feeling to be surrounded by, especially now what you're saying, there's like only 5 candidates in like the area that you're trying to work in. How did it feel to be like among your people? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. It was awesome. It was really, really inspiring to see, 1,000+ people, I think 1,200 or something, maybe a bit more, get in this conference room, this enormous conference room in a hotel in Chicago, to be there for explicitly democratic deliberation around the future of our organization, and with it, the future of the left. Like, we had 70 representatives from different organizations, unions, political parties internationally come and share, about what they're doing and share some ideas of how we can all work together. Because BSA needs these other groups, right? We're all in this together. Yet we're being seen as really the kind of like atlas of the left in the US right now. That like a lot on the shoulders of, it's the biggest socialist organization in the US. It's member led. This is not like a top-down authoritarian weird fringe left group. This is like a serious movement organization that's moving toward being an independent party. And so being surrounded by people taking this so seriously and really thinking through critically, like, how do we move forward, like, to be done, to use the old phrase, like, it was really cool, really inspiring. This conference happens every other year, and the only other time I've gotten to go was in 2021 when it was all on Zoom. And so So to answer your question, yeah, to be around like my people in that way was really cool. And it's funny too. It's like you spend a weekend being around your people like that. It can be really refreshing, can be really invigorating, and also by the end of it, I'm like, all right, now I want to go back out, talk to neighbors who might not be in the real weeds, all the inside baseball of like this niche left organizational dynamic or something. I'm like, I gotta go to trash. And then when I talk to people about trash for a long time, sometimes I'm like, I really need to talk to people about like the state of the left. And so being able to move back and forth is, I always like kind of going back and forth between those things.
Yeah. And I love to, like, I think what's interesting too is we talked earlier about there being like a loud minority of certain people who disapprove of certain things. And what's been wild to me is that Democratic Socialists get treated like a loud minority, even though it's like, no, these are all very popular policies. Everybody's on board of that. And like, even thinking about it as the Democratic Party's future feels wild when it was very much part of the Democratic Party's past. Like that's what we used to do more. We were more supportive of unions. We were more supportive of healthcare and like the New Deal. Like, come on. So it's just, that's exhausting. Right. So thank you for putting in the work.
No, and look, as you pointed out, like the comparison, maybe I'm overreaching here, but like if WWE is bought out by billionaires or like owned by billionaires, run by billionaires, and has this more conservative bent, obviously now with Linda McMahon being Secretary of Education, has this like clearly like pro-Trump allegiance. And if AWE is also billionaire, but has more flexibility for liberal politics within it, I think there's a unfortunate comparison to our two parties, the Republicans and Democrats, where there is a common thread of being purchased by, different parts of the capitalist class, by billionaires, for both parties, and yet clearly the Republican Party and the GOP is leaning into fascism in a way that the Democratic Party is not accepting, and the Democratic Party wants to manage capitalism with more liberal values and with some broader acceptance for some kind of reforms here and there. And so like clearly there's a difference and there's a similarity and there's a difference and there's like both are true at the same time. So yeah, I think like looking to our past, looking to where the Democratic Party's been before, taking the best of that, and then also saying we need something completely independent of these billionaires buying and selling our politics. Like we need a party for work people. We don't have that yet in a major way, and so let's try and build it from the bottom up at the local level, at the state level, and eventually nationally. So yeah, I think that's a major part of this project.
I love that. I thought that analogy worked perfect. I'm gonna throw one more at you, and this is gonna be the most difficult question. So apologies in advance, but strap in. What's your favorite place to eat on Central Ave?
Whew.
I know, because I know they love you on Central Ave. I see those Jake Ephros signs all over the place. I know you hold lots of events there. Sorry, here, let's make it easier so you don't offend anybody. One of your favorite places.
Thank you. I was about to be really diplomatic with that. No, okay. I mean, what comes to mind first is Roomba's Cafe at the top of toward the top of the Heights by Washington Park. Roomba's, Cuban spot. I don't know how to keep their prices so cheap. Maybe you don't want to know, but it is so good. And you pay.
And there's always a line out the door too. Like,
yeah, it's like you got your classic Jersey diner vibes. You got your amazing Cuban food. It's relatively inexpensive. Everyone loves it. It's just like that. It's great vibes. So that's one of my top spots. I love Roomba's. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll take it. Yeah. I'll take it.
What about yours?
Oh man, I would do it. We've been to Central Bistro a couple times. I like that they do a nice meatball sandwich that I'm a fan of, and that's a nice too. Like, yeah, and it's a nice place too because it is a very like it's it's just very nice in there. Like the vibes are nice. Like everybody's very friendly. So that's fun. I'm also a big Geno's guy though. We've been to Geno's a couple times and they know to throw a coloring book or two at my kids as soon as we get there. So that's always appreciated.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
And their grandma's pizza is A+. I'll throw that.
Okay, I haven't even tried the grandma pie, so yeah.
Oh, do it. That's one of my favorites. It feels good, and since it's a grandma's pie, I don't ever feel too gross after eating.
Yeah.
Jake, I gotta go wake up my kids and get them ready for ballet. But cool. Thank you and by wake up, I mean have them get out of their beds because they did not nap, and later is going to be a real hell of my own making. But we'll see how it goes. But now they're good kids. If people want more of you, if they want to support you, where can they find you? Where can they look?
Thank you for asking. Go to jakejc.com. So JakeForJC.com. We also have the number for Jake4JC.com, but that's our campaign website. You can sign up to volunteer if you're in the area and want to knock some doors. You can phone bank from anywhere. We have weekly phone banks. And if you have a little birdseed you want to throw away, we're grassroots funded. So we have no corporate donors, as I said. This is all from just people. So if you're able to donate, everything goes a really long way.
Amazing. And yeah, if you look, shoot me some of those links afterwards and we will make sure, guys, they will be in the show notes. Ryan will add those in. So, of course, look, that's why you're here. I can like very selfishly say that this was never going to be about grilling you, never going to be about like, let's see what this guy's really up to. I am inspired by you. I love what you're doing. And I'm touched that you took the time to watch a wrestling match and sit down and just chat with me about all the cool stuff you're doing. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the work you're doing around here.
Thank you so much, man. No, I appreciate that we're neighbors. Truly, it's a pleasure to know that you're around the corner, dude. So I'll get you another sign.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, this has been really fun. So I appreciate it, Andrew.
So last thing is that we always have our guests do. We ask them to ring the bell to send us home. Now that can be whatever it means to you. It doesn't have to be an actual bell. But Jake, if you wouldn't mind, please ring a bell or something bell adjacent and send us home. Hey, that's pretty good. Come on.
Okay.
Somewhere in the Ring is part of the Somewhere podcast universe. Please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. To learn more about all of our shows, visit thespu.com.